wild song, dude. That band legitimately, I mean, dude, they like changed how I listen to music, because I was like, what is happening the first time I heard them? And then I like really started, that was back before I had really studied drumming and everything. And then I got really into that guy, John Theodore. And I was like, this dude is a genius. He controls the whole pace of their music. And if you listen to their actual music, every single song is completely controlled by him. Even though Omar wrote it, he controlled everything for their first three albums.
There is a lot of push and pull to the groove of that song for sure. And the drums are definitely a major part of that. Like the vibe, it's again, I'm noticing a theme of a lot of like very theatrical classic emo.
Oh yeah.
But
that's my favorite thing, dude.
But it's like, it's also got this particular song also has a lot of like classic blues influence as well, in my opinion. It's got that sort of like,
it does. The guitar solo is
the 70s blues rock with the Rhodes, and like the way that the guitar solo comes in, and like the very like brooding, moody bass line. All of that is extremely like definitely comes from like that sort of like 70s blues rock sound, but then it's also like theatrical emo music at the same time.
Exactly.
And I always love stuff that like can bridge the gap between multiple things like that, because everybody pulls influences from everywhere, but sometimes it's just more evident than other times. Like, I mean, I talk about this all the time, but kind of like tracing the lineage of music and how, rock and metal music, all of that, emo as well, because that's, comes from rock music. All of that goes back to the blues eventually. And
exactly.
I love listening to that and hearing where people's influences come from. It's so cool.
And it's so funny too, because if you actually ever get a chance to watch Omar play guitar, it is the most insane thing you'll ever see in your entire life. That man plays guitar like no one else I've ever seen. There's a reason that they've had him at like G3 and stuff, because he is just, sure, he's technically a great guitarist, but it's the fact that he takes the small things and makes them his own. Like it's so rare for a guitarist to be able to do that, but I love it, dude.
It's definitely one of those things, and I feel like I've talked about this on Twitter before and things like that as well, but like the ability to take something from being technical to being interesting on another level is way more important to me, because like you can see, virtuoso guitar players that'll play, a million notes a minute or whatever. But like, if there's not some sort of groove or melody or something to it, then what's the point? And so that's
exactly how I feel.
That's what makes a great guitarist, is the mix of like technical ability and being able to suit the song.
Exactly. And it's so funny that you said that, because like I feel exactly the same way when I watch guys like Steve Vai or Joe Satriani or any of them, or like even like certain Polyphia songs where I feel like they were more just trying to show off than they were actually trying to play. Like I'm like, I don't know if you listen to Polyphia, but when Polyphia writes a song that they like are really like, we know this is catchy and we know this is good, you can feel that they put more effort into that track than they did into some of the other tracks where they were really just trying to just thread.
Well, I think that where Polyphia shines is when they are a shred band making pop music. Because
me too.
Tim Henson has an incredible ear. He's produced for a lot of pop acts and rappers and things like that as well. A lot of it's uncredited, but he has a very distinct production style. And I think that he has a great ear for pop music, which is what makes the more poppy Polyphia stuff really interesting to me. I actually saw them with Unprocessed last year, and that was a fantastic show. Super cool.
That's so sick. Oh, I would love to see them live. I really would. I feel like all four of them in that band are just unbelievable musicians.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
Clay, the drummer and the bassist, are an amazing rhythm section. I love...
They're so good.
I love like the tone of like the bass slaps, how they're kind of like aggressive. And
Me too.
Also the actually like human played like acoustic trap hats are really fun too.
Yes. I love it.
Very, very different band from what we just talked about, but I feel like the conversation made sense.
That just shows how like I love all kinds of music, right? I am such an open spectrum when it comes to music. It is wild. There's almost nothing I don't like, except for, like we were talking about earlier, pop country. I do not like pop country music at all.
So my next song is another one that has a really interesting story for me as far as how I found it. I went to a show here in Detroit a couple of weeks ago that some of my friends' bands were playing at. And one guy who was playing as his solo project, who also plays in a band around here called Gray Station, shout out Gray Station, he was playing some of his solo stuff for, I think, the first time at like an actual show. And he had a drummer and a bassist backing him up because he plays guitar and sings. And the bassist was, if I recall correctly, his cousin who actually lives in LA and happened to be in town and played with the and played with him for this small show. But we were talking in between sets, and I was like, I mentioned that I do this podcast, and he was like, oh yeah, I actually just came out with a new song recently. You should check it out. So of course I'm like, oh yeah, sure. I'll definitely do that. It's another one that I was just blown away the first time I heard it, that it was so good for somebody with such a small listener count who I just like randomly happened to meet at like a small show.
I was gonna say that small listener count's becoming more and more popular because there's so many artists out there now, though.
Yeah.
It's so sad.
So this artist is Brian McKee. The song is called Solitude Downtown LA, and it's kind of like some funky R&B stuff.